Hey, are you guys ready for another story?
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. That's what we want to hear. Another first-time storyteller who has an incredible story for you. Please welcome to the stage, Matt Wagner.
My childhood story is filled with stories of abuse. Those stories won't be told tonight. But when I was little, I told all kinds of stories because of those stories. I told stories because I didn't like the story I lived. Sorry, I didn't think that would happen. Whew. Wow. I'm just going through a lot right now, so any of these things catch me. Sorry. Oh. Okay.
Don't do that on stage.
We're not going to mention anything about the bad stuff of childhood because that's going to be something that's going to be detrimental to your story. And emotionally, that's not good. So we want to make sure you're grounded in what is good, which is we're focusing on this story, which is the magic of the holiday season in the Midwest, where you're working really hard in Dairy Farm, but there's that one frickin' day where you guys get to be kids. That's how I see it, right? And it was just, anyway, so for another time, that story could be and you'll also maybe have more confidence as a storyteller to be able to tell that story.
That is super true. And the segments of the story are stories in itself.
Yes.
Right? Like that thing, that wanting to kind of wash it off. Like my grandmother opening the door and seeing my uncle molesting me, and then saying to me later, "I'm glad that you love your uncle so much you lie with him." So when she passes, that story takes me over.
Yeah.
And it brings back this whole thing that I wasn't prepared for.
Yes. Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing about this in terms of contextually. It's like, so as the producer of this, I'm billing this as something uplifting after the election. Right? And so so it's like, so in some ways the story, you know, because it's like the show must go on, it's like, but the other thing too is when I work with storytellers, and we haven't had a lot of time, I talk a lot about, you know, why this story, why now, why tell it, what do you want the audience to receive, but also too, the audience doesn't know what the stories are going to be.
Yeah.
And so as the producer, I have to be really careful about not creating sort of like this trauma-informed moment for someone in the audience who has no idea your story, and all of a sudden you say something and it triggers it for somebody else. So that's the other thing. So if we were to do that story, we would have to be very mindful that people would know it's a theme.
Yeah.
And the theme is around X, it's around this. And so that people have an understanding coming in. So I often will say to storytellers that it really is supposed to be therapeutic, cathartic, but it's not therapy.
When I was 15, 16 years old, I was in a group in school called, they called it the TAC group, Teenage Health Consultants. And one of the things that they told us was that all pedophiles were kids that were molested when they were little, and you become a pedophile from that. And I remember when she was telling us that, the social worker. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to become the thing I hate the most? I mean, that was devastating to be told. And I believed it. I believed that it was just going to happen to me. That those people didn't want it either. But it happened to them, and then they become it. Like it's some monster inside of you. It's hard to like even say out loud that telling my sister that I was so happy that Christopher sat on my lap and I didn't find that erotic. Like in my mind, I was always afraid of becoming a pedophile. Like that was something you became. I remember telling I'm in my 20s. No. Yeah. Yeah, I'm in my 20s. And I tell another one of my gay friends who I know was also molested. And I told him about my nephew Christopher and that experience. He said, I know. I felt the same way when my nephew, when they first loved me. I wouldn't have anything to do with them at first. I wouldn't go near those kids because I was afraid that that would happen. And then it didn't. Like, oh, it's a lot to get over. And Christopher is the one that helped me get over that. To give me to understand how to love a child. That was amazing. It's very healing for me. It's the biggest thing for me.
You have a whole audience here.
Now, don't tell me that.
Yeah, Patty May. You know Patty. She says you know everybody, so.
That's an inside joke. You know? But I didn't advertise because you know me, I didn't.
So you just told a couple people?
I just told a couple people.
That's all it takes.
That's
yeah. That's all it takes.
That's
yeah. That's all it takes.
She's
That's
glad.
great. So,
She for
I don't
one
want to run
glad.
in front of you, Paul. I was going to use it.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Please welcome to the stage Matt Wagner.
So, I'm 7 years old, and I'm at the feed store with my mother. We're at the feed store, and we're getting milk replacer and nipples. Milk replacer to go in the bottles that the nipples go on to feed the cows, because I grew up on a dairy farm in Minnesota. And I loved going to the feed store every time of the year, but I especially loved it at this time of year, because this time of year, I was going to be able to tell stories. And I, as a kid, loved to tell stories. I told all kinds of stories. Some of them really happened, and some of them I might have made up. My parents called them long, tall stories. Some people called them lies. Those stories I got in trouble for. But every year during this season, there was one story I could tell that was amazing, and I would just disappear in it. And I knew when I was at the feed store today, at some point, Mrs. Bennard, who happens to be the owner, was going to lean over that desk with her curly brown hair and her big wandering eyes. She was a beautiful woman, and she would look right down at me and go, "Little Maddie, are you excited for Santa Claus?" Oh my God, yes! That energy would rise up in me, and I knew I was about to tell my story. But then I got older, and I started not caring. Life get in the way. I didn't miss a Christmas until I was 29. Because we too, Carol, were not allowed to miss a Christmas. So I always went back, but I kind of lost this little Maddie, this energy about this story. I started just hating it. It seemed so obligatory. You had to show up and always have fun the way they have fun, and if you're not, then there's something wrong with you, and it just got too much. Until my siblings started having kids. And the first time that I played Santa Claus, from my own nephew. Are you kidding? Like looking in his eyes, he couldn't even talk. He was just shaking, looking at me, smiling. And I looked right at him and I saw me. Oh, come on. I loved little Maddie. That was great. And now he was going to tell those stories. The next day, he couldn't. Oh, Uncle Matt, Santa was here yesterday. Oh. So I reached back and I found that little Matt myself. And every year, this time of year, I just love it. And I step right into it. I step into this place where the energy just allows you to escape this life, to move into that just for a time. So it's called, and I'm going back. Thank you.
Matt Wagner.